betrayed, humiliated, forgotten. 3 years ago, Olivia Carter lost her name, her company, and the city she loved. They said the Carters were finished. They said she'd never come back. They were wrong. They didn't know silence can be strategy. That disappearing is sometimes the only way to rebuild. That a fallen heiress can become something much more dangerous than a princess without a crown. She can become a queen who learned to win without one. Tonight, New York is about to remember the name Olivia Carter. Olivia didn't leave by choice. She was pushed out of boardrooms, out of headlines, out of her own home. Her uncle, Richard Carter, had the smile of a savior and the patience of a snake. When Olivia's parents died in a sudden crash, Richard stepped forward with condolences and lawyers. He said he would protect the family legacy. He said Olivia wasn't ready. The papers agreed. The board agreed. Even the man who once promised to marry her, Ethan Blake, agreed. Especially after Richard opened a door Ethan had always wanted to walk through. Power without Olivia. By the time the signatures dried, Olivia was left with nothing but a suitcase and a last name people laughed at. So she did the unthinkable. She stopped fighting in public, and she learned to fight in private. People imagine exile as quiet. For Olivia, exile was loud. Numbers, calls, doors closing, doors opening. Each day another lesson in a language she'd never been taught. How to be ruthless without being cruel. How to be generous without being naive. How to be invisible while buying the room under an unfamiliar haircut and the simple name Liv Bennett. She worked the graveyard shift at a logistics warehouse in Newark. When forklifts broke, she stayed to watch which vendors came first, which contracts had fat that could be trimmed, which routes bled money because someone's cousin owned the wrong truck. She listened, she learned, and then she started to build. Naomi Brooks, a coder with a map of New Jersey tattooed on her forearm and a brain wired for broken systems, became her first ally. Together, they wrote software to move goods like chess pieces rather than checkers. Fewer empty miles, fewer broken promises, more profit where everyone swore there wasn't any left. They called the quiet entity that held it all Ashridge Capital, a name that sounded like old money guarding new secrets. In 1 year, Ashridge purchased 3 struggling warehouses. In 2, it made them profitable. In 3, it started lending money to companies 3 times its size. Richard Carter didn't notice the loans. He noticed the billboards. Carter Enterprises, 100 years of moving the world. The only thing moving, though, was debt. When interest rates rose and a recession whispered through glass towers, Richard borrowed more. He trimmed the bottom, not the top. He never trimmed himself. He kept the art. He kept the yacht. He kept the gala. And Ashridge Capital kept buying Carter debt. The return wasn't a shout. It was a footstep. A black car glided to a stop in front of the Beaumont Hotel. Gold doors, red carpet, 1,000 cameras that loved legends and scandals in equal measure. The city's most powerful were gathering for the Carter Centennial Gala, a celebration of the company Richard swore he'd saved. The door opened, a heel-touched marble. Olivia stepped out, not in morning black, but in a color that looked like a decision. She didn't need to raise her voice. The flashbulbs did that for her. 3 years is long enough for people to forget your face. It's not long enough for them to forget your fall. A silence rolled across the entrance. Then the whispers started. Is that? It can't be. She's back. Olivia didn't look at the cameras. She looked at the doors and walked. Through them, gala lights are honest. They show you everyone who matters and everyone who wants you to think they do. Richard stood at the far end of the ballroom, beneath a chandelier, like frozen lightning. shaking hands, soaking in praise. His eyes found Olivia like a man recognizing a portrait he had taken down. The smile didn't slip, it shattered. But the room belongs to whoever walks through it without asking. Olivia did. Heads turned as if pulled by strings. She didn't need to make a scene. She was the scene. Ethan Blake stood near the stage. Thinner, meaner, the kind of handsome that hardens into something you can cut yourself on if you're not careful. On his arm, Claire Whitmore, a publicist with a killer instinct and a Rolodex that could swing an election. Ethan's mouth opened. No sound came out. Olivia gave him the gift of nothing. No nod, no greeting, not even contempt. It was a better kind of cruelty. The kind that says, "You're a line in a chapter I've already finished." Richard approached, with a glass he didn't drink from. "Olivia," he said softly, for the microphones. "How wonderful to see you looking so..." "Well," she returned the politeness with a smile that didn't travel to her eyes. "You too, Uncle. The city's been kind to you." Only two people in the room heard the other voice in that sentence. Marianne Shaw, her family's old counsel, and Marcus Lee, a journalist who made careers by spotting moments exactly like this one. Marcus lifted his phone slowly, as if gravity had changed. The speech started late, because Richard needed time to pretend he hadn't seen a ghost. Eventually, he found a stage and a spotlight. "Tonight," he declared, "we honor a century of resilience." He talked about storms weathered and futures secured. He thanked investors by name, then promised the workforce a bold new era. When applause grew, he raised a hand for silence. "And I would be remiss," he said, with the humility of a man counting cameras, "if I didn't acknowledge my niece Olivia. Family is everything. It was a dare. It was bait. It was a mistake." Olivia stepped forward without waiting to be invited. "Thank you," she said. "Family is everything, which is why I'm here." She didn't raise her voice. The microphones did that for her. "I'm not here for nostalgia. I'm here for accountability. I'm here for the workers whose health plans you raided, for the vendors you paid 90 days late because you needed a new jet, for the name Carter, which my parents built and you pawned." The room inhaled. It did not exhale. Richard tried to laugh, but found he couldn't. "This is hardly..." Olivia cut him off with a grace that felt like a guillotine. "This won't take long. Ashridge Capital has just called. Your debt." On cue, Marianne Shaw stepped from the side with a thin folder, handed it to the master of ceremonies, and asked that it be entered into the record of the evening, because in New York, galas are courtrooms and courts are theaters. Carter Enterprises, Olivia continued, owes Ashridge $328 million. Secured by your inventory, your receivables, and, most importantly, your voting shares pledged as collateral when you refinanced last spring. Richard's face remembered how to move, but only in the direction of red. "That's preposterous," he said. "We have an arrangement." "You had one," Olivia replied. "You broke covenants. You cooked numbers. You hid losses in subsidiaries with cheerful names." She paused, letting the truth arrive before the proof. "And you forgot that paper has a memory." Marianne lifted a single page, a notice of default, and a schedule of pledged shares. It said, in the dry poetry of law, that the moment the notice was read, control shifted to the creditor. A ripple became a wave. Investors stepped back as if the floor had tilted. Ethan looked for someone to tell him what to do, and found no one. "Who do you think you are?" Richard finally spat. "Some vulture fund? Some faceless predator?" "I'm exactly who you trained me to be," Olivia said, and for the first time her smile was warm. "I am Ashridge Capital. Power changes rooms." Sometimes it's gradual, the way light fades at dusk. Sometimes it's immediate, the way dawn erases night. This was dawn. Marcus Lee's phone shook. He steadied it and kept filming. Claire Whitmore did the math on which headline would age better and decided not to sprint to a microphone. Olivia turned to the workers lining the back wall, in rented tuxedos and borrowed dresses. Tomorrow payroll is guaranteed. Health benefits are restored. The holiday bonus you were promised, paid. She turned to the vendors who had come out of obligation, not hope. Your invoices are cleared within 10 business days. Interest applied. My team will meet you at 8 a.m. Finally, she turned back to Richard. As for you, resign tonight. Leave the building tomorrow. No interviews. No statements. No clarifications. Go home. Let the name heal. Richard laughed once, a sound like glass in a trash bag. You think you've won? You've never even played this game at my level. Olivia didn't blink. You're right, I learned a different game. It's called keeping promises. The board meeting the next morning wasn't a meeting. It was a coronation without a crown. Ashridge's voting control was confirmed. Lawyers recorded, cameras turned away from the signatures and toward the future. By noon, the nameplate on the largest office moved 6 inches to the left and back again with a new line beneath it. Olivia Carter, Chair and CEO. She didn't sit, not yet. She walked the floors. In the distribution center, she shook hands with a woman named Alicia, who had worked nights for 16 years and never once called in sick. Olivia asked what Alicia needed that no one ever asked for. Alicia said safety vests that actually fit. Olivia ordered 1,000. In accounting, a man with tired eyes pointed to a piece of software older than 2 recessions and said, "We pretend it works." Olivia looked at Naomi, who nodded. By evening, a replacement plan and training budget were on her desk. In the cafeteria, she stood on a chair and said, "We will be smaller before we get stronger. Not you. The middle that doesn't make anything and doesn't help you make anything. We will cut where the numbers say to cut and invest where the people say to invest. If you have an idea that saves time or money or dignity, there's a bonus with your name on it. If you steal, if you cheat, if you lie, the door is generous. It swings both ways for the first time in 3 years." Applause wasn't for a promise. It was for a plan. Redemption doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering differently. Olivia visited her parents' old office that night. The air still smelled like the cologne her father wore and the ink her mother used to sign letters by hand. On the wall hung a photograph taken before she knew the cost of believing people simply because they shared your last name. She whispered, "I brought it back," and allowed herself 1 minute, only one, to cry. On the desk waited a letter, no return address, typed on a machine that belonged to memories rather than days. It read, "You think this is over? It's not. Olivia Carter is not a legitimate heir. Ask about 1996. Ask about Boston. Ask who signed her birth certificate. And why. There was no signature. There was a watermark. Wolf and Darrow, a law firm where money goes to become a threat." Olivia read it twice. She didn't panic. She didn't shrug. She called Marianne. "Wolf and Darrow?" she asked. Marianne exhaled. The way people do when they recognize a storm, by its scent. "Richard's last card," she said. "If he can't win by numbers, he'll try by blood. Then we win by truth." Olivia answered. "Find the records. Boston, 1996. Every file, every name. If someone forged a page of my life, I want the pen." She hung up and looked out at the city. New York at night doesn't promise safety. It promises opportunity. She had taken her power back. Now she would protect it. The next morning, Headlines didn't just trend. They took root. The Heiress returns. Debt deal flips Carter Enterprises. Overnight workers cheer as benefits restored. Who is Ashridge Capital? She is. In a corner others ignored. A smaller headline asked a smaller question with a larger implication. Old secret in Boston. Sources say, documents may surface. Olivia didn't chase rumors. She chased proof. Marianne flew to Boston. Naomi dug through databases with the patience of a surgeon and the curiosity of a thief. Marcus Lee requested records because good journalists know the difference between gossip and history. By afternoon, one fact was certain. Someone had tried very hard, a very long time ago, to make the truth about Olivia hard to find. That evening, as a peach-coloured sunset folded itself along the Hudson, Olivia stood in the boardroom where she was no longer a guest. She looked at the skyline and spoke to the city, to her parents, to the girl she used to be. "I didn't come back to win a night," she said. "I came back to win a century." Her phone buzzed. A text from Marianne. "We found something. Not what we expected. Call me." A second buzz. An unknown number. "You don't know me, but you know my handwriting. Meet me at the Beaumont. Midnight. Come alone." Olivia smiled. The way a chess player smiles when she sees the move 3. Turns ahead. "Check," she whispered. "Not yet, mate." She picked up her coat, turned off the lights, and left the room she had just taken back. Betrayed, humiliated, forgotten. That had been the opening chapter. Now began the book. Watch till the end. Because the end keeps moving when a woman refuses to stop. Love, power, payback. New York remembers. And Olivia Carter writes the next page. To be continued.